for Region 10. And as most of you are aware that for this quarter, the first quarter of the year, we are listening to the experience of our own center presidents of the region. Different center presidents are sharing their experiences, and today we have Pru and Michael Kaufman from New Orleans group. They are sharing their experiences on the topic. Okay, the topic is Life Lessons from Sai, the Guiding Light. And Pru and Michael, they are center president and vice president for New Orleans group since a long time. Pru Kaufman came to Swami in 1995. She was an active member of Sathya Sai Baba Center of Fairlawn, New Jersey for 20 years, serving as SSC coordinator and also Seva coordinator. In 2003, with Swami's guidance, she helped the Fairlawn Center establish a soup kitchen located at the First Presbyterian Church of Passaic, New Jersey. The project began by serving a full hot meal once per month, but quickly expanded to once a week, year-round, as another Sai group, church volunteers, and civic groups were inspired to contribute by this example of Sai's love in action. The project continues today with uninterrupted service to the less fortunate. Pru also worked with the Sathya Sai Book Center of America for 10 years, where she was instrumental in digitizing the product catalog and establishing the book center as an e-commerce outlet. Currently, she serves as the president of the Sathya Sai Baba Group of New Orleans. Pru holds an MA in Public and Organizational Relations and a BA in Organizational Communications from Montclair State University. She teaches communication studies at Southeastern Louisiana University. Very brief description would prove that she has so many other talents, but this is the small description to know the personality of Pru. Michael Kaufman came to Swami in 1996. The other guest speaker, Michael Kaufman. He was an active member of the Sathya Sai Baba Center of Fairlawn, New Jersey for 20 years. As happiness coordinator, he brought joy to the guests of the Sai kitchen by implementing monthly birthday celebrations with cake and ice cream, visits from Santa Claus, storytelling, jokes, sports trivia, and other light-hearted activities. This is a very interesting designation. I haven't heard about happiness coordinator. Very curious to know. Probably we can have that kind of coordinator or the position or role at our centers also. Currently, he serves as the vice president of Sathya Sai Baba Group of New Orleans. Michael holds an MBA from New York University, Stern School of Business, and a BS from the Wharton School. He is a happily retired CEO and CFO. Pru and Michael are eternally grateful for numerous family visits to Prashantanilayam with their son. Golden memories of precious time spent in Swami's physical presence are forever etched in their souls. Swami remains the guiding light in their lives. With this introduction, I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. What we are trying to do in this session is the first 45 to 50 minutes, our guest speakers will be addressing us, sharing their experiences on the topic. And we reserve all the questions at the end for the last 10 minutes so that we can have uninterrupted listening from for the audience. And those people who want to have their questions sent to us in the early, what you can do is you can put it in the chat window so that we can summarize those questions at the end and ask our guest speakers. With this, may I request Pru and Michael Kaufman to share their experiences, please. Saira.
Beloved Swami, thank you for bringing us all together tonight from points near and far. We are so grateful. Please may we feel your presence with us all tonight. Sayonara. Thank you to Brother Shyam for the kind invitation to speak tonight. And many thanks to Brothers Morley and Venkat for their really expert behind the scenes tech support. Much appreciated. So you know this is called an inspirational channel. However, we have a little disclaimer in that regard. So Michael and I really can't claim to be inspired. Um, that's not within our capability, I suppose. But, and I know that that may sound like bad news because you're coming here expecting to be inspired. But what we do know is that if any inspiration occurs, it is because of Swami and it is due entirely to Swami. So we would like to ask our divine director to just use these two little vehicles to impart his inspiration and his wisdom to all of us, including Michael and I. So the title that Swami gave us for this talk tonight, Life Lessons with Sai, we'll share a few of our small experiences. They're not necessarily unique experiences, but they're unique to us. And the lessons are profound for us. So hopefully there will be some inspiration in that. But the thing about life lessons is that it's a work in progress, right? The learning from the lessons, I feel, occurs after the event or situation or whatever it was that prompted the lesson, right?
Yes.
So doesn't it take time, before it actually is assimilated, the true meaning and the true significance of whatever that lesson is that Swami wanted us to get.
That is, you don't realize at the time that you're getting a lesson.
Right, and it's, yeah, and it's like it has to come to fruition in its own time, the same way that we need to come to fruition spiritually in our own time. So we'll share a few examples. And as we go through, what we have to speak about tonight, think about the same or similar things for yourself. Maybe there are questions for us. Maybe you just have some observations or comments to share with us, whatever it is. It will certainly be appreciated. So with that said, one of the most amazing and defining characteristics of Sai Avatar is that every devotee has a uniquely personal experience or personal relationship with Swami. Different, unique. Swami has said, I think it's Satyasai Volume 7, that I am a child among children, a man among men, a woman, among women. So he appears and relates to us in a way that we can identify with, right? But even more so, Swami knows each of us better than we can possibly know ourselves. He knows, our past and our future, our karma, our entanglements with other people, our level of spiritual attainment, whatever that is, our mental capabilities, our physical constitution. I mean, he knows it all and tailors, speaking from my own observation, tailors the relationship for our needs. And so he interacts with us each differently, necessarily differently. Some of us, he's a friend. To some of us, he's a parent. He may be the family deity or one of many deities in infinite number of ways. So, with that said, Michael has something that he would like to share. Please do so.
I would like to start off by telling you, by going back to the beginning for me, a gift that Swami gave me after our first visit to Prashanti. We went for Guru Purnima 1996, and it was a great visit but I did complain to myself.
Fortunately.
So I thought. I thought I was complaining to myself silently that I wasn't getting close enough to Swami at darshans. And that was my complaint. I wanted to be closer. So it was a great trip. We come home, and for weeks after we came back to New Jersey, I had this yearning to want to be back in Prashanti. And one night, I had a dream. Pru and I are the only people on the veranda. It's empty except for Swami. He's talking to Pru, and I'm there. Cycle and Hall was filled, but we were the only ones on the veranda, and it was closer, not above where they sit, but it's normally empty, I think, in that white area. And while Swami is talking to Pru, I'm looking out at the devotees. And then I remembered reading Swami say, "You don't realize who you're with." So I quickly looked up at Swami because I was looking at the devotees. Now I'm looking at Swami, and he looked at me. He gave me a long look as I kept looking at him, and I felt such deep love in his eyes. It was just, and it felt real, even though I was asleep, dreaming. Um, and he gave me a little smile, and it was just wonderful. That was a real gift. And I recalled after I woke up, and I was telling Prue about the dream, I recalled hearing a gentleman talk about a darshan he had been to where Swami asked, how many, to one of the devotees, how many times have you been here? The answer was 5. Swami asked again, how many times have you been here? Again, the answer was 5. Swami asked again, and the devotee shrugged, didn't know what to say. Swami said, 7. You've been here 5 times, and you count the 2 times that I went to see you in your dreams. And that's the gift Swami gave me.
Mhm. So, as Michael said, this was our first visit to Swami and Prashanti. And at the time, being rookies, and I might say, stereotype rookie devotee, not in a negative way, but we were naive and we were immature. This was really despite the fact that, I had recognized Swami's divinity immediately when I picked up my first book. I mean, there was just no question about that. That wasn't the issue. But we were, during that first visit, consumed with the desire for an interview, just consumed with this desire to be close to Swami, to hear his voice, to, have some exchange with him. Because that's, desires do that, right? They consume you. So we were consumed by that desire in particular. Anyway, what I wanted to really say about it is that from that point on, from the very beginning of my relationship with Swami, until many, many years later, the way that I related to him was predicated on his name and his form. So the divinity, the name, and the form were inseparable. Whenever I thought of Swami, whenever I read about Swami, whenever I prayed, meditated, it was an immediate, automatic imaging of the form and the name. And it was like we had a relationship in the same way that I have a relationship with my husband, my son, my friends, right? Based on name and form, based on my name and form, as if there were 2 individuals. So when it was time to leave to come back home from that first visit. And we're on our way out, and I was sorely disappointed, to say the least. Again, I apologize for my naivete at that point, but I was very sad to be leaving Swami's presence, and I felt disheartened somehow. I couldn't quite figure it out. Anyway, our driver had to stop at the gate before leaving Shanti. For some reason, all of a sudden, and he also had to take care of some things. And while the car was parked there, Michael and Tara stayed in the car, and I just jumped out of the car, like I sprung out of the car, and ran into the bookstore. At that time, the small little bookstore was right there at the beginning of Main Street. And I could not possibly have enough books to bring home, but I ran in there, last minute thing, and it was as if a magnet pulled me to a shelf and to a particular book that I just, randomly pulled off the shelf and started flipping through the pages, not looking for anything in particular. And these words, a couple of sentences, but these words literally jumped off the page at me. It was like I could almost see the lines, coming up. And I read these, Swami's words to me. I kept you away from the form, for I wish you to become one with the inner self, my true self. I did not want any impediment to your progress. These sentences are in quotation marks, as if to make sure that I got the point. Like you can quote me. I actually did say this to you. I was floored. I don't know how else to say it. The words seared my heart and my mind. And I understood that it was not just a random happening. And I understood that it was by Swami's design and such love. Can you imagine Swami being an impediment to your spiritual progress? It's boggling, it's unthinkable. But it was the form that I would have gotten maybe distracted, the same way that you were distracted by those thousands of forms out there in Swami's presence. This was probably the one time, or I think it really was the only time, that Swami's guidance to me was very clear and explicit. The words were clear, I understood. At least I thought I understood. I'll come back to that later. But that's the one time. It changed thereafter. But anyway, I'll let you take over.
Okay. I'd like to talk about surrender. Well, I'm not sure that we were in a state where we were able to surrender, but we learned that what surrender is, if I'm saying that correctly. So our son Tyler, Pru, and I, we planned a trip to Buddha party. We would all be together the first 2 weeks, and then I would return home. I had to go to work, and Pru and Tyler would stay on for the 2 more weeks. They'd be there in 4 weeks in total. Pru was a delegate to a world conference. So we knew it was a busy time, and they asked us to check in towards the end of my stay to see if Pru and Tyler would have to change rooms. So when Pru asked a few days before I was to leave, they said, "You must leave. You can't stay. Delegates are coming." Pru reminded them that she is a delegate, but still, you have to go.
It was every time I went to the accommodations office, "Madam, you must go."
So,
very emphatically, "You must leave."
So Pru kept trying. I'm trying to get in touch with the airlines that just in case they really do have to go, that we all get, they have a flight home. And two things got in the way there. Number one, our driver had the tickets and passports in Bangalore. I'm not sure why we talk about trust and surrender for that. I mean, I don't know what he did with them, but anyway, that's not part of the story. They weren't with us, and the airlines said that it's peak season. We might be able to get you to Europe, but it's impossible to get you to the United States. So, a few days spent in chaos and all. We finally left. We had no choice but to surrender. We were leaving without plane tickets for Pru and Tyler, and with no idea how it was going to work out. We get to Mumbai. It's a holiday. All the offices are closed. The airline, even in the airport, are closed during the day. So as I'm looking up hotel listings for where to go, this mysterious and angelic man named is Joseph comes before us, and he insists on taking us to this hotel. It was a new hotel, so new it wasn't even listed. And it turned out to be just perfect, clean, new. And he vowed that he would not leave us alone. While we were in our room, sleeping, having dinner, he was, as far as I know, just waiting for us, never left. Yeah. And he drove us to the airport that night. And somehow, again, I'll use the word mysteriously, he got the tickets changed such that the three of us were on the same flight directly from Mumbai to New York. And we were seated next to each other. And there were extra seats around us. It was a miracle. We were grateful and confused.
We were very confused.
And very grateful.
Very grateful.
So on the flight, I got sick. I had a very sore throat, chills, fever. I was shivering, shaking, and it got progressively worse as the flight went on. By the time we got home, Pru called the doctor, concerned that I might have malaria, told the doctor we just came from India, and the doctor, of course, said get to the emergency room right away, at which time they put me in quarantine. We had an Indian doctor, so when tests were coming back negative and no medications were working over the next couple of days, Pru informed the doctor that the drug of choice that works usually is Cipro.
In India.
In India.
Whenever we have gotten ill in India, Cipro has been the medication that seems to cure everything.
Right. And the doctor just pretty much ignored Pru, and and so that's not the right one for him. Not even knowing what my ailment was. A couple of days, as I said, a few days passed. Finally, Pru walks in one morning and asks the nurse how I am. The nurse says he's feeling much better. Pru asked what happened for that to make that change, and the nurse said the doctor changed the medication to Cipro last night. So.
And you were home?
Home in hours. I was home feeling great. But what I want to say is we were well aware as this was happening that Swami was the divine director of the whole play, choreographing everything, every little detail. You see, he had to make the confusion in accommodations so that Pru could be with me, because had I gone alone, I wouldn't have gone to the hospital. I would have just sat. Who knows what would have happened to me? I didn't know about Cipro. So Pru and Tyler had to be with me. And that's why all that happened like that. So I'm not, would you call that surrender?
It begs the question of what really is surrender? Because we were forced by external circumstances. You know, it was like we were being scooped up and moved, literally, you know, out without any logical or at least outwardly logical reason for it. And
But we went with the flow, and like I don't think we were questioning the result. Once we maybe met Joseph, I don't know. But at some point it just happened, and it wasn't like we were like questioning what the results were going to be, which is one of the things that in the surrender prayer it says, don't not to question.
so is going with the flow surrender?
Trusting that Swami will take care of things, I think, is surrender.
So if you trust Swami to take care of things, and you still have in the back of your mind a little bit of concern,
It's not surrender.
it's not.
No, I don't think so.
So so maybe it wasn't surrender. Maybe it was resignation.
But we learned, but if we were smarter, we learned that we could have surrendered because Swami did take care of every little thing.
But this was the first time, I think, it was the first experience that we had as a family of, Swami scrambling 3 lives and all of the circumstances. I mean, everything was a scramble. And wanting to surrender, but still struggling with that outward, this is kind of irrational. So I'm just questioning, how do I know if what I'm experiencing is really true and maybe complete surrender?
We might get into that. I might get into that as I give some examples because I think I can answer that better from today's experience than from 23 years ago, whatever that was.
Okay.
And pretty much I'll repeat it. It's like it's not questioning. It's just totally trusting that everything comes out perfectly, and Swami will take care of everything, and not to question it. Can I move on with the 3 of my lessons?
Yes.
Okay, it's all in the area of attention. That's the and one of them is, where am I paying attention? Am I paying attention to truth or distractions? And let me tell you about another trip for Shanti. It was actually the year after the dream, our second visit. Swami gave me the best seat in the house. It's the long aisle, from his house, going towards East Prashanti, and I was in the front row, in the center of where the carpeting would be on that runway, and Swami, I was able to see Swami come out of his house, make the turn, come towards Sai Kulwin Hall, enter, walk through the ladies' area, past the lions, into the men's area, and then he walked right to me. He didn't look at me. His feet were about, like, I don't know, 3-4 inches from my knees. And he was looking beyond me, taking letters and maybe talking. And I was just looking up at Swami. And that's all I was doing until someone sitting next to me somehow got my attention enough and communicated without saying anything for me to have Padnamaskar. And fortunately, Swami was very patient with this slow learner. He was still there. It was a long time that he was there before I finally got Padnamaskar. And so notice my dream and now this great seat. There's nothing bad about my attention, but it wasn't where it could have been. I think the point on distraction is better illustrated at another darshan I was at, where there was a gentleman who was making a big commotion. He was screaming out Swami over and over. I think he was not feeling well and just desperately wanted Swami's attention. I looked over at where the commotion was coming from. And in that moment, Swami was not next to me, but not far from me, in good vision of, and so I'm looking over there and I missed the beginning of Swami making vibhuti. So that's a better example about being distracted instead of, why would I not be looking at Swami? And so that's a constant reminder to me, like, I don't stop for car. If there's on the highway, there was an accident and there's sirens and all that. I don't stop to look. My job is to get me and whoever's in the car safely to the next spot. So I don't let curiosity get me. I don't. In New York City when we lived there, I didn't stop for crowds who would gather around looking at something. Just keep walking, and it's these darshans that help me focus on that. More recently, I stopped for minimize. I can't say stop, close to stop. More minimize turning the radio on when I get in the car. Instead, I spend the time in silence with Swami. It's like a waking meditation, and it's wonderful. So that's that lesson on attention. Mm-hmm. The second one is, where is it directed? Is it going outside for the answers, or is it going inside for the answers? And so this one I learned also at Darshan. My Sai family, for the first several years that we went to India, my Sai family told me, you have to get an interview. When Swami gets near you, you go, Swami, interview. But don't talk in a whole sentence, just say, Swami, interview. And I said, no, that doesn't feel right. Swami knows better than I do if I want an interview. They said, doesn't matter. You still ask for an interview. I said, it doesn't feel right, but I figured they all had more experience than me. So I listened, and so this darshan we're talking about, I'm now front row again. It's funny, I just complained to myself once about not getting close, and now Swami's always giving me front row seats. Anyway, I'm sitting on that long runway in the men's section, my back is to the mandir. And as Swami is coming close to me, he's walking on my side of the carpeting where he's not far from me. And just about as he gets to me, I go, Swami, interview? And he answered. But he kept walking without breaking his stride at all. He just kept walking, but he did answer. I couldn't decipher any of the words that were all in Telugu. But after darshan, someone came up to me and said, what Swami said was, not now, maybe later. But what I remember from that is that it felt wrong. It felt wrong. Not like going out of my comfort zone, where that feels wrong sometimes, but you're happy when you do it. No, this just felt wrong. My interpretation, but my feelings that it kind of put me in a different relationship with Swami than I had before that. I just felt bad about it. And so that that was the beginning of my looking inside, not just looking for answers in the head, outside. I go within. I wonder if I had any examples. No, I don't. Other than to say that I know when I go within now, I'm really asking Swami for help. It's a little like surrender, but I just know that the impact on me is that I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulder. I'm not alone. When I go inside, Swami's with me, and so thank you for me asking for an interview.
Mhm.
I was able to get that from it. I have one last thing on attention, and this is it come I don't know if it's scientifically proven, but they say whatever you put your attention on increases. So I've recently had the joy. I mean, I could have done this any time in the last 25 years, but for some reason, but I know the reason. I did it hugely the last 3 months. When Brother Sham asked us if we would speak tonight, um, Pru said yes. And I said, what do I have to say? Like, why would anyone want to listen to me? And so that was surrendering right there by saying yes, trusting that Swami would make it okay. That I say is an example of surrender.
It might be, yeah.
And so what happened was I said, I better get busy. This is like 3 months ago. I better get busy getting ready because I don't know what I have to say, what I can offer. So I started writing and writing and writing and rewriting. And it may sound like a lot of effort, but what a gift it has been. The more I wrote, it was like spending time with Swami, close time. Almost it was like
Mhm.
private darshans, with Swami. And like I just the more I did, the closer and bigger it all got. And I remember one bicycle ride in particular, not too long ago, when it's like a 45-minute ride, and around halfway through it, something happened. I'm on my bike, thinking Swami, holding him in my heart, and I felt him in every cell of my body. The love was just like pure joy. I was basking in the joy of it all, and just riding along and just being filled up all over with Swami's love. And then it occurred to me, I I don't ever have to be alone. Swami's always with me. And somehow that went into a great feeling of love from Swami for everyone, everything. And so it became, we don't ever have to be alone. And that was that. So can I wrap things up for me? For me, and you got plenty.
Okay.
It's what's prevalent in everything I'm talking about tonight. It's there with everything is immeasurable gratitude. Now, I've been grateful my whole life for a lot of things, but that gratitude was in the head. It was for the big things. It was after the fact. It was like, hey, you got a lot to be grateful for. It was intellectual. Now I'm grateful for everything, not just the big things, the little things. Like even just last night, I'm making salad, and I left the cabinet door open in the kitchen. I don't know why. I move over to the sink, and I hit my head right into the cabinet door. And I'm kind of like laughing as I did it, because I'm thanking Swami that the door was open enough that I hit a flat part of the cabinet and nothing happened. But these near misses are always happening. I'm always thanking Swami. So I'm thanking Swami all the time as it's happening. And I just feel love when that happens, as I do that. So in conclusion, this will be it for me. I'll be quiet after this. Thank you, Paul, for putting up with me. So we got gratitude, and multiple times a day, I'm asking Swami to give me the faith and strength to surrender to him. So that's like the staples. And I found that when I'm living the lessons that I talked about tonight, you know, with attention and more, mostly is the earnest devotion to Swami coming from the heart, not the head. You know, I've always had the devotion from the head. Now it's more from the heart, and the result that I've been experiencing with all this is, this may sound like it's coming from out of the blue, but it's what I've been experiencing: less desires and more equanimity. And that's, thank you, Sarah.
So I noticed long ago that there were some people that seemed to me to be very lucky, um, because Swami gave them clear advice, like go to this school, marry that person, stay here, go there. And I thought he was making their lives very easy, but it wasn't particularly making my life or our lives easy in that way, because the guidance that I got from Swami, and still is still the same way actually, um, was not like that. When I would pray, go within, connect with Swami, and ask. And many times the answer would be silence. Many times the answer would be, oh gosh, it would be not clear, cryptic or mysterious. And so I want to share with you a dream that I had where Swami was, in fact, cryptic, but significantly so. So in this dream, Swami and I were sitting in chairs, pretty much like this, face to face, and talking like you would be speaking with your mother or grandmother about something personal, that kind of a presence. And throughout this conversation that seemed to go on for a long time, Swami was holding my hands the whole time, never let go of my hands. And as he spoke and I listened, I was doing the listening, he was doing the speaking, which is a good thing. And he's stroking my hands over and over, over and over. And what I remember him saying was, as he stroked each finger deliberately, now you're going to need patience. You're going to need discrimination. Maybe fortitude came next. But 8 fingers were getting 8 fingers were getting qualities that I was going to need. And that was it. And I woke up in an instant, filled with bliss, Swami's presence in the room, alert, and I couldn't remember what he spoke about. And this frequently occurred. It was so meaningful, and yet why am I not allowed to remember every single word of it? And I, remember. And so this was cryptic to me. And I mulled over it for months. It was always trying to pull it back from my memory if it was in there. So this was in the year 2000. And I kept a journal at that time. Swami used to come frequently in dreams or in the house and different things like that. So I did record it to make sure that I could go back to it. Fast forward a year, 2001, and we're having an addition built on our house over the garage. And it is a blazing hot summer in New Jersey. I mean, really hot. Too hot for the men to go up on the roof. So they left early that day, the workers. And they put all the power tools, big equipment, everything went in the garage, and they left, mid-afternoon. Michael's working in New York, 1.5 hour commute, 1.5 to 2 hour commute. Our son Tyler is in a day camp program, 30-minute drive to another town. And I had to go pick him up. And there was also a parent meeting that I had to attend when I went there. So I'm backing the car out of the driveway, and I noticed the garage door is open. And I couldn't just leave the house with all of their equipment exposed, to the street. So I got out of the car, and remember, there's no electricity on this side of the house. It had been cut off so that they could, do the construction. So I reached up to grab the garage door, big door,
With the major
metal,
metal.
heavy metal, with the big slats that go across. And I was going to ease it down to the ground and let it close. So as I grabbed it and started to pull it down, my fingers found themselves between two panels, these 8 fingers. And as the door started rolling over the rails, it gained momentum, the weight of it, and, came crashing down with my hands stuck. It was excruciating, and I was passing out. But I yelled for Swami, and I was willing myself to not pass out because I figured I was going to die on the driveway in a heap with my fingers crushed, and there was not a soul to be found on our street. And as I was sort of losing consciousness, somehow saw myself get up, stand up, lift the door, like a feather, lift the door, pull my fingers out, and that was it. The door was up, but I thought my fingers were gone for sure. And all I could think of was to get back into the house and throw myself onto the couch, because at least if I passed out there, I would not be out in the heat. Somehow got the key out of my car, got into the house, made it to the couch in a hair's, nanosecond. And just as I felt like I was going unconscious, this image flashed in front of me of Swami holding my hands a year earlier and stroking these fingers over and over again. And I just wept. I sobbed. And then I said, but Swami, I have to pick up Tyler. What am I going to do? There's no one around. Sure enough, I got up, put my hands under cold water, got in. I don't know why I did that, but I was moved to put my hands in cold water, and I actually felt like I could move these fingers a little bit. Got in the car, drove to Montclair, made it to the meeting on time, and by the time this meeting was over, my fingers were normal again. No pain, nothing broken, nothing. Fast forward another few years, several years, and I was doing work on my computer for the book center, updating the website, the catalog, a lot of that. And I just happened to glance down at the keyboard, and I saw my fingers working like they were working on their own. And again, this picture of Swami holding my hands flashed in front of my awareness again. And it was boggling to me, and I thought, my goodness, is this what you saved my hands to do? Or was it just that, in your infinite compassion, you helped me pay off some terrible karma, without really paying a huge price? Or it could have been a huge price, because I really thought my hands were gone when that accident happened. So the qualities that he said I was going to need, I surely did need. He was right. And I find that all these years later, I still think of that. It still is in front of my awareness very frequently, when I need extra fortitude, and certainly need Swami's discrimination, not mine, and so it's been his lesson or his guidance has been a thread that has gone through almost 25 years of my life. And it keeps teaching me. It keeps, revealing more, to me. So now, all these years later, remember I said at the beginning how Swami crafts or designs a relationship unique to each of us. So my relationship with Swami has now changed, and it changed on April 24th, 2011. Because before that time, as I mentioned, there was always an automatic association with name and form. Yes, divinity, but name and form foremost. When Swami returned to the formless, infinite, it changed. And now when I call Swami, when I, reach for him, try to, to feel that inner presence, like you were talking about, it feels abstract. It feels ephemeral. The form doesn't appear automatically. It doesn't even come to mind automatically. But it's like I need to somehow stretch into that formless to connect with Swami. And I also realized that this is what he was telling me in the message in this book from our first visit. At the time, I was too naive to understand it all, to grasp, what he was saying. But I kept you away from the form because I want you to become one with the inner self, my true self. He was telling me why I was there. He was setting the tone or sort of maybe the ground rules for our relationship. It's like, this is what it's going to be about. It's like you came to school, this is what the class is going to be about, right? He was setting the curriculum for me. He was giving me my homework, my lessons to do, to work on, and to complete without his physical presence in my life. And that's where we are right now. Eternally grateful, eternally grateful. So thank you, and Sairam Swami. Brother Morley?
Quite a few, thank you. It's quite a few lessons talking about surrender, and also I like the way how you're conversing it. Is it resignation or it's a surrender? It's a beautiful self-analysis, self-inquiry, which is happening all through our lives. That's the way how we realize it. Excellent. Actually, yourself detaching from form to formless. Fantastic. So now I throw open this forum to the audience. Do you have any questions to Pru and Michael?
Please, put my glasses on for these.
Now, those who wants to ask questions, you can unmute yourself and open up.
I know we have some very old friends.
I got one question. This is Ram here. So Pru and Mike, thanks for sharing. What is the best way to be connected to Swami all the time during the work hours as well when we are pulled into our jobs? What is the way to be connected with him?
So I'll use Swami's words and not mine, which is Namasmarana all the time. And when it can't be all the time, when we obviously need to concentrate or pay attention to something else, a task, work, school, whatever, we do that, and then we switch back. that is one way that Swami has given us. I find that I have to remind myself of that, that I slip. I think that you need to find that for yourself by going within and seeing what resonates and what, how Swami is directing you in that regard.
I have a different one.
Yeah.
I was just going to say silence. Just go in the silence.
It's like Michael said a little bit earlier, the more, when you pay attention to something, the more attention and energy you give it, the stronger it becomes, right? And I have found that to be true as well. But, I don't know that I'm in a position to, to give you any advice other than what Swami, has said himself. And that, would work out in your relationship with Swami. He would certainly guide you in that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
So one thing actually I learned from the talk which Michael has mentioned is the last 3 months, the time Shyamji asked him to speak or to asking you to be our guest speakers, since then he started living in those thoughts, recollecting all those memories, the golden memories you have on that. And imagine in case if we are able to live in those thoughts, even without being asked to speak, that is living with God. That is living with God, always ruminating on Him, thinking of Him. But actually, that's a very beautiful point. I experienced many a time. Whenever someone asked me to speak at their centers, I spend some time, pick up some of those experiences and think of it. But that's the best way how you can live with God forever.
Absolutely. For us, as Michael said earlier, being asked to think about our relationship with Swami, to talk about it, to, recall experiences, that is such a blessing, such a joy and a blessing to just have that time. It's like a luxury to sit down and recall everything with Swami. So take advantage of that as well whenever you can.
Correct.
Hi, Ram.
Yes.
This is Bhatt from Fremont, California.
Yes.
How do you invoke Swami in your life throughout the challenges that the world is facing right now under the pandemic? Because the situation is very grim, and how can you have Swami guide you? And secondly, can you see the face of that book as well, please?
Unique graciousness.
Unique graciousness.
Thank you.
It has no author. At least no author attributed to the book.
Okay.
Keep typing.
So, what I have learned the past year, in particular, and with the help of some of our very good friends, I see some of whom are on the call with us, who appreciate you being here, is that knowing that everything is perfect the way it is. When we look out into the world of duality and we see what looks like evil or chaos or whatever, it's very easy to get hooked by that. And yet we know what Swami has said about the Kali Yuga. He turned off the switch to the fan some time ago, but the fan is still spinning until it exhausts its residual power. And so what we're witnessing is, the dregs. Not to say that we shouldn't do all the good that we can and serve wherever we can, however we can. I believe that that's our role as devotees. And yet at the same time know that He has the whole world in His hands, including us. It is perfect because it's God's plan. I had the thought not too long ago that, we're Swami's advanced team. We're the ground team. The new age is coming. The golden age it is on the cusp, and how we live our lives, how we behave, what we do, just inwardly even, is what brings this about. So, we're sort of, I think, maybe the advanced team, maybe that's our, the reason that we're here, and we have been here with the Avatar to serve, in some capacity, however he chooses to use it. That's how I make sense of it. Anyway.
And this may be saying what you just said at the beginning in different words, but Swami wrote the play. Swami is directing the play. We just have our little roles in it, and we don't know how the play is going to end, and we don't know enough of the play to make any sense of anything. We just have to trust that everything comes out perfectly. Why question Swami? And so maybe that's part of what surrender is.
Mhm.
So would you say that this pandemic is moving away from one age and moving on to another age, into the golden age? Like Swami says, the golden age is not very far away. Is the pandemic a sign of moving from one age to another?
I can't say that. I don't know that we can. That's an interpretation, and interpretations are of the mind. And what if I could go back to the previous question? One way to be more present or to have more awareness, continuous awareness of Swami throughout the day and our lives, is to quiet the mind and maybe not listen to the machinations of mind, the conjurings of mind. So, we can interpret, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. We can give interpretations to everything that happens, doesn't mean that they're the truth. Things happen because they're happening. So, my word is not the wisdom on whether the pandemic is, the preamble to the golden age. It could very well just be part of the cleansing that we all need to go through. But again, that's just the interpretation of a small mind, my small mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Lata from Dallas.
Lata from Dallas. Welcome.
My question is, does having a spiritual practice?
Sairam, Lata, your voice is not audible. It's very feeble.
Have we a spiritual practice?
Like a daily spiritual practice, does that help you connect with Swami? Does that help you deepen your relationship with him? This is a question to both of you.
Yes. Do we have a spiritual practice? Does it help us to deepen our relationship with Swami? For you, it's all the meditating that you do.
And it's to be asked to speak here. No, it's the meditating, but it's also it's my ad hoc prayers. I guess I call them ad hoc prayers. They're spontaneous, and they just keep occurring, throughout the day. And the prayers are prayers / gratitudes, and there's the meditation, but it's the all day long with the like I say, ad hoc prayers and gratitudes.
Michael spends a lot of time in meditation. I am not spending, well, for a long period of time. I don't seem to have the same capacity to meditate for long periods of time like that. But it is part of the practice that I find brings me much closer to Swami. And of course, as I said earlier, now it's the formless Swami. So to the extent that I can enter into the emptiness, that's where I find Swami's presence. I feel his presence all the time, but this is a particular deliberate connecting. I think you know what I mean, Rata.
Yes, yeah.
When we're first given an instrument or something new to learn, a play, a sport, whatever, we're not good at it. But the more we practice, the better we get. And that was my experience with the more I'm grateful the more natural gratitude becomes, and the better. I don't want to say better. It's not better at it, but it's just more natural. It's just part of my life. It's just being grateful is for me every moment.
You know, the other piece that I would put in there is renouncing the results. You know, frequently I work hard or, involved in something or other, and it's very easy to slip into the doership. I'm doing this, I'm working this out, I'm, teaching or whatever. It's easy to slide into that. But when I remember, and it's more frequent lately, actually, to turn it over to Swami. And I find that even just doing it once in the morning with my, prayers and meditation is usually not enough for me, because throughout the day I grab it back. So I grab it back.
Yes.
And I have to remember, when I'm struggling with a program or something, Swami, please fix this. Please give the right thoughts. Please, take over.
Yeah.
And repeating that frequently, I find that very beneficial, because it sort of helps to erode the ego a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it brings me more into, being conscious of his presence.
Mm-hmm.
Pru, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I want to say to Michael that I really like the idea of your writing down daily your meditations or your ideas, your connections with Baba. And the reason why I say that is this, that the divine consciousness that is Baba is in all of us. We are part of the divine consciousness, but we're also human. And because we're human, we don't reach that perfection that we really want to reach. And so I like the idea of using methodology to to direct yourself to Baba. One other thing that I'd like to just share is I like the idea of wherever you are looking for Baba. So it might be looking for the number 9 on a license plate. It might be seeing a picture that reminds you of divinity or something. But Pru, what you were talking about, some of the experiences that you had where you were absolutely aware of Baba being in your life, the finger story where you knew that what was happening. The idea of concentrating on Baba during the day, to try to look for him during the day. When I say look for him, look for that divine conscious during the day. We find out that those kinds of things that you were talking about, Pru, those things where Baba all of a sudden seems to be there, happen more frequently. So I compliment you both on your methodology. Very, very nice. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you for being here, Chuck.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Sairam, Chuck.
I don't know.
I think that, that was a dramatic story, and sometimes Swami is dramatic. And, it's easy to notice those. But looking for Swami in the little things, all the little things, as you were saying, is profound as well. Sairam.
I would just like to say one more thing. I think it's a nice idea to write down those beautiful experiences where you know Baba is in your life. I've done that. I've written down things that since Baba has died, where I felt Baba has been in my life. The beauty of it is it connects you to Baba, but also to have those remembrances at your fingertips for others who may inquire, or even your children, are just a wonderful thing. So again, I compliment you for doing the writing and writing things down.
Thank you, Chuck.
You remind me, Chuck, of how grateful I am to Swami that he brought this entire family to him, including our son.
Sairam,
So,
I'd just like to add a little thing that you talked about surrender. When I used to live in the UK, brother Jagadishan, Dato Jagadishan from Malaysia, he came over to London, and in one of the science centers in North London, he was the guest speaker. And once I asked him the question about surrender, and what he did was he had a white handkerchief in his pocket. He went to Swami's altar. As he went to Swami's altar, he had the white handkerchief on his head. As he bent down to pray to Swami, he put the handkerchief at Swami's lotus feet. Those are all our problems, surrendering all our problems. And then he picked it up again, came back to the mic, and put it back in his pocket. And he says, this is not surrender. When you have problems, you surrender to him, you keep it there. Don't take it back and take it back home with you. That's what I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
That's lovely.
Sairam.
Thank you.
Sairam, thank you.
Sairam.
Sairam, this is Sudhakar from Houston.
Yes.
I actually had the very same, I had the question about surrender. Now, basically, like, when we are in a problem, it's hard to, like, yes, taking Swami's name is generally the instinct, but at the same time, we keep thinking about how to solve the problem. So, so if we were to surrender or not and not think about solving the problem by itself, then I don't know. Can we say the problem will just go away? Or, it's a struggle, like, because like we can't just, I can't just sit like that without thinking about it. At the same time, I leave it to Swami, and, I'd say, like, Swami, this is your problem. It's not mine. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to do anything about it. So, like, it's kind of, it's a very, it's a very tricky thing where, which way to go kind of thing. And that's a kind of a dilemma. Like, I don't know how to solve. So generally, like, yeah, I do my part, but at the same time, praise Swami when I'm doing it. But then, like, so it's like this, like, sometimes it might work out, sometimes it may not work out. The outcome might be something negative. At that point, like, it is also the faith that gets challenged. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, as with surrender. So how do you think, like, we can solve that kind of a dilemma? Sorry,
3 words or less. It is a dilemma, and that's part of the human drama. We have our roles to play in the play, and we need to play them convincingly, right? We need to play the role as if we are the role, but we also know that we're not. And so it's sort of be in the world, but not of the world. And, the more, and for myself, Michael probably has a different perspective, the more time I spend in silence, whether it's meditating or just being silent and communing with Swami, the more that translates to the rest of my life, my waking life, the things that I have to do. The things I have to do may include making decisions, and they may include not being able to simply wait, for guidance to descend upon me. But even that, I give away the ownership of it. Like, I realize I have to make a decision about this, I have to take action, I'm doing it, understanding that I am not the doer, but I'm doing it, and I'm giving the results back to Swami.
Pru, this is Patty DeFazio.
Hi, Patty.
I love that response. That is exactly how I feel. I think we have an obligation to act, to do. So whatever the issue is for Murali, whoever, that interaction has to happen, but we surrender the result. however it turns out, after we do our very best, whether it's our karma or our dharmic duty, surrender the outcome. The outcome is outside of our hands, but the duty is within us. So great answer, Pru.
Sarah, Betty.
Thank you.
If I could just add to the original question, a word was used, tricky. Yes, that was a key word. It is tricky. And for me, it would be getting quiet, going inside, asking Swami, what should I do? And wait for the answer. And just be honest with yourself when something feels like wrong, like you're forcing it, like it's not coming from Swami, which is not always easy to figure out either. But there's something like the more you get out of the head and into the heart, for me.
Yes, and I would say one kind of way that I can test whether something is right or not is to question if it's really dharmic. And if something is dharmic, say you have to make a decision that involves a number of people, right, in different situations, it will not be harmful to any of the people involved. So if a decision is made and let's say 1 out of 6 people gets the short end of the stick or is harmed in any way, it's not necessarily a dharmic choice. It's like, for me, go back, re-examine again. If it's dharmic, it will be for the benefit of everyone involved. At least that's the way it works for me.
Yeah, that's true. But the topic like surrender or the karma, those are very, very, people get really excited and get attached to that one. So the discussion will go on and on forever. Yeah, but really very prudent and very intelligent answers. And thanks for clarifying a lot of doubts. So may I request Mahesh Rege, our Vice President, to jump in and give some comments?
Sairam, loving Sairam. Thank you so much, Sister Pru and Brother Michael, for a terrific satsang tonight. It was really wonderful to hear you recall how Swami has been a guiding light throughout both of your lives since you have known him. And you know, you've really shown us that you both have had a deep yearning for Swami and spiritual growth. And therefore, it has been easy for you to receive his guiding light and make the spiritual progress and transformation. So that was a takeaway for me, right? We have to really demonstrate that deep yearning. And when we do that, then Swami is always there to come into our lives and show us the path and guide us at the right moments to take us forward in our spiritual journey. It was indeed lovely to hear about your stories on surrender. You know, and at the time, maybe you didn't think about it as surrender, as you mentioned, when you had a trip to Parthi and you all had to be together on your return flight from Mumbai to New York. You had no feasible way that you were seeing of making that happen. But Swami miraculously made it happen. And he made it happen for a reason, because you could all be together in times of need of Brother Michael's sickness. So you could take care of him and take care of the situation. So that was indeed very touching. The next lesson for me was when we do Swami's work, or whenever we are thinking about Swami, it's important for us to have 100% focus and attention on Swami. So it was really touching to hear, Brother Michael, your story on, you know, how you missed Swami materializing Vibhuti, because you got distracted, maybe momentarily even, by somebody very close to you, right? So the lesson for all of us is, you know, and as you shared, is for us to be really focused and pay attention to Swami and avoid any or all distractions around us. So live in the moment and stay focused. The other wonderful lesson, Brother Michael, that you shared was when you were asked to be a speaker, um, how you were able to relive all of your moments with Swami, thinking about Swami, all the lessons that you have learned in preparing for the talk today. It gave you an opportunity to relive the great love that you have shared with Swami, and also relive the lessons of gratitude for everything that you have had. So that was indeed very, very touching. And then Sister Pru, it was really nice to hear your lessons of life, and particularly the dream that you had about Swami moving his hand through your 8 fingers and talking about a different virtue like patience and discrimination and forbearance. And at that time, you had really little idea as to why he was sharing this lesson. It seemed very cryptic, as Swami's messages to each of us. They're very personalized. We sometimes don't understand when we hear them. But later, very beautifully, you were able to connect it when you had the incident of closing your garage door and having your fingers jammed and hurting deeply with your 8 fingers. But then Swami was able to take care of your pain just in time so you could discharge your duties. So that was indeed a very beautiful experience that you shared. And finally, you were really able to connect us to, how do we realize Swami now? And we have to really move away from the name and form to more the formless. And that is something that you alluded to towards the end of your talk. And that was something that we all need to take away as we move forward in our lives. And also during the Q&A, I think you beautifully shared that the best way for us to be connected all the time is see his form, think about him through namasmarna all the time, and maybe also practice silence, because as we've heard, it's only through the depths of silence can the voice of God be heard. So it was very beautiful that you could share that with us. And finally, it was really nice that you could connect what you read the first time in the book that you picked up at the bookstore and relate that to all of your experiences. So that was indeed wonderful. We are really blessed to have both of you in our region. And I think the biggest learning for me is the way you are both living examples of all of the lessons that you have learned. The focus, the attention, the discipline, silence, and connecting with God. And through all of our interactions, the meetings that we've had, the interactions during retreats, and all the mini projects that we've done together, I think you have been indeed living examples of Swami's teachings. So it's really a blessing to have you with us tonight and in our region and with an access to all of us. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us and sharing the lessons of Swami. Sai Ram, over to you, Brother Murli.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you, Brother Mahesh. Thank you.
Hi, Ramal. One announcement is since we are entering into the second quarter next month, we will be starting a new theme. That theme is going to be on service. So within our region, next second quarter of the month, which is the next 3 months, we will be covering the experiences of our service people in our own region. We want to listen to how we can think of God effectively in the service itself. So that is what we'll be doing it. Looking forward to see you, all of you, in the next regional inspirational channel. Till then, Saira.
Sign off. Thank you so much.